Hey team, we've got a bit of a new project we're trialling out this year, so I wanted to explain that. And it's all to do with how we are utilising this abundant resource that we get each year. So our farm, like many, is subdivided by these tree rows, these Shelterbelts, and so we can see an even mix. From this point we've got sort of leylandi, we've got a gum in the back, we've got some pine over there and a poplar hedge lane. So that's sort of, and some macrocarpa along the road as well. So here's 5 different tree types that we've used as Shelterbelts, and this has been Dad and Pop planting through their lifetimes of farming. And so these tree rows take a lot of work to maintain. So every second year we'll get the tree, and you can see with these quite well. And so Dave, he's a bit of a local legend. He's the first aid responder for St. John's and just a life member of the rugby club. He does a lot, including cutting a lot of people's hedges in the community. So every second year we'll do the lower bit, and about every 6 or 7 years we'll get the Aparina, the tall tree trimmer, to do the top stuff. And so that's how we got so much of this, is because we just had him in the start of the winter. And so standard practice is we pile it up and burn it. It also takes a bit of getting off the fence lines, but it's a huge amount of biomass, and it all gets piled and burnt, and that's sort of what happens everywhere, including this farm for the last however long we've been doing it. But just going onto some like permaculture properties, and when I was sort of like exploring that and just seeing how they just like value resources, and they wouldn't burn their sticks, they would like try and bury them or do something like this because it's all carbon, and obviously that's good for our soil. So coming back, and we're like, holy shit, we have so much of this stuff all the time. And so I've estimated roughly what we've got lined up to be about 100 tons of carbon, or perhaps 100 tons of biomass. I don't know what that equates to in carbon, but it's a lot anyway. So how can we use it? And so we're just thinking, if we piled it up beside a hedge lane that doesn't have trees in it yet, and then we can get this mulcher in, which we'll head and check Fergus. He's here doing the mulching at the moment, and so he can just chip this up into a small wood chip, and then thinking that would leave quite a nice seed bed for planting trees into, as in we wouldn't need to spray it out or monitor the trees or control for the grass for so long, because the wood chip would suppress that. It would also have all these mycorrhizal connections with the soil and start building that network, a more fungal base than our typically bacteria dominant soils here, and that's what makes trees thrive. So thinking it will really give these trees a good booster once we do it. So that's roughly the goal, is to mulch this down, leave that, and you can see all of these tree rows are running north-south, and that's most of the shelter on our property, just the way the hedge and the predominant wind comes. But we've actually already got our shelter quite well set up on this property, which is fortunate. So we're running these ones east-west, and might fill it with some more beneficial pollinator species, or things that could be coppiced or woodlot species. We could fill this with chestnuts or tree lucerne or cherry or oak, because they already have the shelter from the wind, and that's what makes establishment quite difficult. So yeah, that's what we've got going here. Wanted to show one of these. Just you can see how much biomass this is, so it has been a shame to burn it, I feel, when I change that lens of, this stuff's a bloody resource that we can be utilising. So how about we head up to Fergus and see how he's going with the machine. So here's a patch that's been mulched, and you can see what we've left with from this big pile that we saw earlier to it's just all down, and this stuff which will just continue to break down, feed into the soil, and in the meantime we can break that apart grass isn't going to grow that straight through that. So if we sort of push it apart to do our tree planting, I think this is going to leave us with a pretty good situation. Now should we go see what Fergus has to say? Fergus, you're doing a pretty stellar job mulching these branches up. Do you want to run us through this machine and how you're doing it?
What we've got at the moment is a big fence, which is roughly putting out about 300 odd horsepower, running grass and mulcher, which literally we're pretty much backing into sticks. Those teeth going pretty fast, that mulches it into small nice particles for them to be able to put it back into the ground for planting trees. It just holds a lot of nutrients and stuff back in the soil. It holds moisture as well for when you go to plant something. So it puts everything back into the ground instead of burning it.
Awesome. And how's it been sort of processing all this stuff? Because when we were piling it up, it was like, oh, is this even possible to mulch this? But you've done a stellar job.
Yeah, so like it's very slow going, but at the same time you're putting everything back into the ground at the same time, which is explainable with some of the big trunks that are in there. That mulches it up, it just takes a wee bit longer. The bigger the piece, the smaller the piece, obviously the quicker it is. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, cheers, man. Well,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So just one last stop on the tree hedgerow clippings tour, and that's just. Yeah, so that system is awesome with the machine. It's been a real success. It's the first time we've tried it, and it's something that I think we'll do for a long time. The hold up is just it does require a big tractor and a hefty machine. So obviously, you know, part of the thing is like we're sequestering carbon putting in, but using a big carbon burning machine. So this was just something that didn't require that. And this pile was massive. It was above this hedge for sure. It was the trimmings from this entire hedge land, and we just piled it up. And so it wasn't the thick branches that we saw Fergus chipping up before, but it was all these trimmings that again would still normally burn, but just piling it up. And it's left this sort of beautiful compost. And so this is only, I think, 1 year since we did this. And you can see, you know, with the grass pulling in here, it's just like, it's healthy already. So I'm going to use this through the fence as my section, so I'll be able to just like channel it through and use it as mulch and compost in my garden. But yeah, this is probably just what happens more naturally, and I think it's something that we should really just change the mindset of just seeing this as something that we've got to deal with, to it being a resource. And the whole process is very much how nature would deal with this. You know, a tree would fall down in the forest and it would just take a lot more time to break it down, but eventually it becomes soil. So getting Fergus the machine in just like speeds up that process. And then yeah, with this stuff that didn't have quite the thick branches because it was just the lower trimmings, we just piled it up and it's left us with an enormous amount of compost. So that's us, and that's how we're going to start to value hedge trimmings and utilize them in the future. Cheers, team!